Do I need to put the Christmas lights on, or is it too much?
You can put the Christmas
New Year's
if you want. How festive are you feeling? My Christmas lights are on. Or I've opened the curtain as if you can see through to the camera that's facing the opposite direction to the window.
I can see some light, maybe.
Can you?
Wow. Well, there's like I don't know. Maybe it's a reflection.
Could be anything. I don't know. Oh, that's much more festive.
There you
Look
go.
at that.
Let's give people what they want.
It's what people want. The glitter.
Welcome to 2025. Yay.
Welcome.
Did you have a good New Year? We did.
Do you pretend that you record stuff on the day? Is that how you do it?
We do record stuff on the day, Luke. What are you on about?
It's all written.
2 minutes before upload at midnight.
This is all how
it's
we're
always
spending our
5
New
o'clock
Year's
somewhere, Luke. It's always 5 to midnight. Yay! We haven't got family and friends, so we're forced to be slaves to the NDP transmission diary.
Yeah. Look, see, I'm there. I'm supporting.
Oh, look, there it is in the background. Look at that. That's a very nice nerd shelf behind you, I have to say.
Thank you. I'd set it up this morning.
There is a lot of stuff. Hang on, there's a lot of Star Wars stuff on that shelf near the bottom. I can't tell what it is. Is it Legion?
Up from like here up is Bloodbowl. Yeah, it's Legion down there.
Oh, he's got. I'm only just noticing everything now.
John Blanchard.
Look, he's got his team. He's got his team on like a stand, and he's got his certificate from last season for being Daryl's new man. Look at that.
Yep.
So it's set a relatively high bar for us, Chris.
One day it'll be trophies. That's the plan.
Yeah, maybe. there's a beautiful
that's
spoon
this
up
year's
there.
goal.
I tell you, beautiful wooden spoon up there.
Yeah, beautiful piece of glass.
My New Year Blood Bowl resolution: try and get some kind of trophy.
See, that's also mine.
See, look,
mine
I'm
as
on
well.
ground. 2025.
Well,
fight.
Shall we get started, gents?
Let's.
Who wants to say it? First one of the new year. Go on, Luke. First one of the new year.
Go on, Luke.
Line. Feed. Roll the intro.
Hey! Hello everyone, welcome to the Bite-Sized Blood Bowl podcast, brought to you by the people at Blood Bowl Life. My name is Chris. I am joined in this brand new year of 2025 by, as always, Mr. Scott Bryant. Hey Scott, what's your favourite year?
Hey Chris, favourite year is 1999.
Any particular reason for that?
Oh yeah, very good reasons. Lots of good reasons. Can't talk about them before the watershed though, and probably I won't talk about them because I'd get sued. I'd see a lot of litigation. But hey, I'm smiling. That's why, really, guys, to all our viewers especially, I'm only 24. But hey, I look like I've had a tough life. I have.
Wow. Okay. Well, that took a turn. And
thanks,
joining
Chris.
us.
Oh, by the way, happy New Year, Chris. Sorry, Happy New Year. Just before I forget. Yeah.
Happy New Year to you as well. And joining us, not this week, no Tom Horrell this week, as you can see by his beautiful cherub face in the bottom corner. If you're watching this on YouTube, no, he's got other commitments. So we're doing something that we normally only do when Scott's not here. So this is the first time for Scott to actually be here, and that is we're doing an episode of Hot Takes Explosion. Wide appears on the screen, which means we have a guest in our little green box in the bottom corner. And our guest, he is the coach of the Orphic Gladiators. He is the coach of the Fetid Feet. He is also the coach of an ogre team whose name escapes me because I wasn't at the tournament in which he played them. But 3 teams under his belt and many more being painted on his desk. It is none other than Mr. Luke Baggott. Luke, hello. Thank you very much for being with us.
Hello,
What
everyone.
is your favourite year
Thank you for having me. The year 2000 for the drama,
for the drama?
which
Okay.
I was 4 years old. Yeah,
Okay.
the big millennium. Yeah,
Well, a good choice of year. Mine
I'm
would
gonna
be
stick with that. Yeah.
mine would be 2020 because it's the year that I got married and bought my house and made my pub in my garden, and went on a lovely honeymoon. I'm just ignoring everything else that happened in that year and focusing on the good things that I did.
No. Okay, all right. Amongst friends, amongst the NDP community, what have you done today? What have you done that means you have to recover that situation by mentioning 2020, the marriage, the lifestyle, etc., etc., etc.? What have you done? Share it with the
I've
family.
been
Come on.
a perfect husband today, I'll have you know, Mr. Bryant. As far as I'm
You,
aware, being locked in my shed
you've
in the
done
back of
some.
the garden.
You, have you been locked in again? You must have done something extra special, haven't you, over
Yeah.
Christmas?
The absolute professional married man. Anyway, enough about my marriage. We're doing hot takes. Luke, thank you so much for coming and bringing whatever hot takes you've come. I'm in high levels of anticipation as to what you have brought this week. Scott, I know you're not normally here for these, so just so you know how they
All
work.
right, rub it
Luke's
in.
gonna bring.
All right.
Luke's gonna tell us 3 hot takes of his, and we're gonna judge them. Yeah. So just pretend you're Tom.
Thanks.
Get into that.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Luke, down to you, sir. What is your
Shall I
first
do the
hot
first
take
one?
for us?
So I've got 3, and they're varying levels of spiciness.
Okay.
So we'll go with kind of medium hot to start with.
Okay.
So I think
Ooh,
going
nice.
easy on an opponent is the worst thing you can do in Blood Bowl.
Ooh, I like this. I immediately like this one. Okay. Now, why? I mean, part of the reason why I like this one is that the first game that me and you played, Luke, was I didn't go easy on you as an opponent, and
And I think I said that to you at the start.
and I
Please
felt
don't.
really bad about it. Okay.
Mhm.
Why? Why?
So I think I've learned far more in. So I've only been playing for just over a year table. Not even that. Less than a year tabletop, but played a load of Blood Bowl 2. Maybe like 50 hours or so. So like I've played a bit of Blood Bowl, but I think I've learned more in my losses than any win I've had. And I think having that, as long as you go in knowing that, okay, I can improve from this, it feels much better, even if you get thrashed like 4-0, 5-0, whatever. And I think I've learned more from those games than ones I've done the reverse, I suppose. And I've noticed some coaches are really good at, even if they do get to that point where they're 3-0 up before second half, they'll then take the time to start explaining things you could do better or those kind of things. And so that's why I think it's almost rude to just go, oh, I'm only going to beat them 1-0. Because I feel like you don't really learn that much, but I don't know. What do you think?
I like this. I really do like this one. Scott, have you ever gone easy on someone and felt
No.
no?
No. I think we have to define here what does going easy on someone means. Does it mean you're not going to score touchdowns, or you're not going to take casualties, or do like 3 dice blocks when you can? Or does it mean so for example, instead of going from 3 to 4 to 5-0, you're quite happy to stick at 3-0, and if you just play that and almost turn it into a coaching session, because turning it into a coaching session, I don't think is a good thing. I fully agree with in terms of if you go easy for the sake of going easy, yeah, I don't think so. If you want to help and support your opposition as much as you can, because obviously you don't want to come across as some sort of condescending moron. But to your point, would you? Yeah. If there's a touchdown opportunity, I think it's within the obligation to score it. That's my personal take on it. So I fully agree with this. I fully endorse it. However, I don't think you should do it at the cost of being that guy or being a dick, basically. help out where you can, support, give people to think of, and but don't play the game for them.
Yeah, I think that like it's interesting because I've played games where like I've played with a either a tournament or league practice roster, and it's been like, okay, what would I do in this situation if it was and you know, you can have the opportunity to be really open with your opponent and be like, if this was me and I was playing this and it was a league game, I would probably be stalling, so I'm going to stall. And I've had games like that before where I've kind of I've said to my opponent I'm going to stall, and then almost sort of helped my opponent to a degree with, like, you know, if they've never encountered stalling before or don't kind of know how to break that down and stuff, and you can kind of give some guidance and things like that. It's a lot easier to do in friendlies, obviously, because in a friendly you can be like, stalling in a friendly I think is okay as long as you are like, I want to practice stalling, but otherwise I don't think anyone really gets anything out of it. Like, so yeah, I like this as a take. So Luke, like you said, you haven't been playing tabletop for overly long, so, and you've learnt more from the games which have maybe sort of gone that way. Have you played in games then where you have found yourself in a situation where you felt you need to go easy, or you've been tempted to go easy but then you've been like no, or like how have you kind of approached that situation?
I think honestly, probably not yet. I don't think I'm quite good enough to be at the point where I could confidently beat someone without trying. And so for me, it's only ever been like the receiving end against better coaches. But I think actively seeking out better coaches to play against improves drastically, especially when they're playing as well as they normally would against anyone else. And so I think it's that kind of thing where it's like challenging yourself, even though you know you're probably going to lose, but still trying and then picking up what they do well. I think that's probably made me, because I've noticed in particular my performance from last season and this season, going from, I think, under a 50% win rate to now, you know, nearly 70%, or, you know, however it works out on tour play. But it kind of, I feel like I picked up loads in that short amount of time, but not being afraid to try those games. And even like playing against you, Chris, like I think I beat you once maybe out of our 4 or 5 games.
3-0, I believe you beat me with when I was testing out some Chaos Chosen.
Yeah, but that was off the back of losing 2-0 with the same team.
Yeah, it was mirror
because it was like tournament practice, wasn't it? Yeah. But anyway, it's still like those kind of things I really enjoy.
I think as well, all I'd say is, Luke, is if you've got a 70% win rate at the moment, please don't feel embarrassed to shout it. Shout it as loud as you can. That's phenomenal. So again, well done, sir. Well done.
Well,
I think to your point now, having been through that, you know, because I'm only my 3rd season, something like that, in terms of Blood Bowl. I think I've been playing for about a year and a half, something like that. I think you learn so much more from playing the more experienced coaches, different races, different, you know, ways of playing, to find what suits you as a coach, as an individual. You learn from your mistakes, and I think you find in Blood Bowl people tend to learn very quickly. We've seen that this year. We've talked about it in the ADBBL Season 8 as well. And I think going easy, if we define going easy, as we said a few moments ago, as that, you know, holding back from not scoring a touchdown, I think you're not giving your Blood Bowl opponent the respect they deserve. I think helping out people and just reminding, and just, you know, all the values we talk about in our community. I actually mentioned to the formidable Mr. John Reeder at our match this week that I did have a frenzy piece, and he had a lineman 2 squares away from the edge to kick off. So I was kind enough. I know I disappointed a lot of people, but I did remind him that I had a frenzy piece, and he was grateful as usual. So things like that, happy to do. I think going easy for the sake of it, just to be polite. No, you're doing more harm than good.
Yeah, I think you definitely learn
like
more
it as a first one.
Yeah, you definitely learn more by being smashed into the ground and being told why what you did got you smashed into the ground, and then knowing not to do it again or knowing what to do, rather than somebody doesn't do the blocks and then you kind of have an easy go of it. So very, very strong start,
Yeah.
Luke. Very strong
Very
start.
good.
Let's have number 2. So if
Number
that was
2.
a medium hot, are we moving up to a
Mm.
hot or very hot?
No,
How
I'm
hot are
gonna
we going?
cool down a little bit
Okay.
before something very spicy.
Okay.
So next is I think the additional rules for newer teams are keeping the game really interesting, and not necessarily to the point of overcomplicating things. So for example, like Amazon. So I went through the like recent releases. So like Amazon Hit and Run, Chaos Dwarfs Breathe Fire, Gnomes having Trickster and Myball, Norse having the kind of drunkard, Ogre Kick Teammates, Snotling Swarming, and then Vampire Bloodlust and Hypnotic Gaze. And I think that makes those teams really interesting when compared to something like Humans. They kind of feel a little bit bland now. And I don't know what it to me feels like that kind of it feels like the design ethos they've been putting into new teams is feeling way more interesting in the newer teams. And I don't think they should stop that. And I wonder if the new rulebook might pick out some of these skills for the older teams and kind of revamp them. Because I guess the counterpoint is it feels like it's complicating an already fairly complex game for newcomers. But I think it's for the best.
So I had a conversation the other day with some friends of mine around around an idea that they had heard like as a possible rumor for like a third edition, third season 3 of Blood Bowl, which was team rosters all getting a bit of a getting a bit of a revamp to make sure that what you get in the box is what you need to play that team. So with Amazons, with the exception of big guys, with Amazons, with Norse, with vampires, with goblin, with gnomes that have come out, those 4, necromantic horror, another one that comes to mind, you get everything that you need to play that team out the box. When you look at some of the legacy teams like Elven Union, Humans, Skaven, you do not get a full roster. You get a playable roster, but you do not get a full roster in the box because every human build that you ever see normally has 4 blitzers in it, and you only get 2. Skaven, you only get 2 gutter runners. I mean, even if you take a rat ogre, most people take 3. Elven Union, you don't get 4 catchers, you only get the 2. So this kind of idea that I like. I think I like this because I like that the newer teams they're bringing out. You're right; they're kind of giving you these extra little. There's almost a balancing act. They're giving you these extra skills and traits, which are maybe require a little bit more technical thought as to how you use them, and maybe makes them a bit more complicated for a new player. But you do get everything you need in one box to actually play. And I think, I think if they did re-release Humans or Skaven or Elven Union or any of those kind of older, sort of more kind of untouched established teams and gave them a bit of a revamp, maybe gave them a new trait, but also made it change the rosters up a bit, I think it would be better for just new players hitting the game.
Oh, is this my bit now to come in with my piece, my opinion?
You don't
so.
have to.
I was going
Silence.
to. I was waiting for some sort of signal and not just the tumbleweed going across the screen.
Okay,
there.
next time I'll give you a I'll give you a little click.
Could you? Jeez,
Yeah,
thanks,
I
Chris.
will.
Thanks. For me, I think GW have done a pretty good job, especially from what you've said in terms of these the additional rules, the skills, the traits that they've been bringing in. They've meant that they keep within the thematics, the lore, of each race of each team as well, and I think it adds to the flavor. When you talk about teams such as humans, I think one of the things we've talked about on this podcast previously as well, but humans are sort of the jack of all, master of none, but they have that ability that you can develop them how you like. So if you want to go a bashy human team, you can. If you want to go a more of an edge passing team, you can. It might take you a little while to get there, to build up the right skills and get the right players. You can. Whether they are a full playable, a full roster versus a playable roster in the box is another conversation already. I fully agree that some of the legacy teams do need to be looked at, whether you've mentioned the classic one there, Skaven, not all full gutter runners. But then you look at something like Dark Elves, you've only got 2 blitzers in the box as well. You've got 2 Witch Elves, great, but you only got 2. And you don't have an assassin. That's the other one, yeah. And no one really runs with 2 runners these days anyway, if even with 1. So whilst there does probably need a refresh from a GW perspective as well, if you are still selling humans, if you're still selling Skaven, why would you invest in the tooling to re-engineer the whole sprue, the whole framework, the whole box, when you can just sell them too? So from a business perspective, it's that trade-off. But in terms of the additional roles for the newer teams, I think they've added a nice layer of depth, a nice layer of, as I've mentioned, lore, as I've mentioned, thematics. Have they overcomplicated it? I don't think they have. I think from maybe a new players, you can make that argument, whether you were talking about Blood Bowl as a gaming mechanic, 40k, AOS, Horus Heresy, as you start or even Legion. If you start on Legion as a newbie, you're going to find that really challenging. But in terms of the thematics, when you get up to it and you invest the time in it, as you increase your knowledge, you will get a more rounded, flavoursome experience. So I think at the moment, I think Blood Bowl's in a pretty good position. I actually like the fact that when they bring out the teams and if they bring out High Elves or whoever next, or Tomb Kings, then the way they add to the mix, I think, is in a really good place at the moment. I think, yes, there's things in the mechanics. Yes, I think there's things they could come back and revisit, but I think generally it's quite good. I enjoy it.
But here's the thing, though. If you... I get what you mean. Like redoing this, if they keep selling new Skaven sets, they're not. Why? You're right. Why would they bother doing a new Skaven sprue? But if you were as a Skaven coach, if you were told that the new rulebook capped gutter runners to 2 because that's what's in the box, but they were strength 3 instead of strength 2, and they cost more money, would you take that as a trade-off? So like humans, if the blitzers, you can now only have 2 blitzers, but they both come with block and tackle. Do you take is that a suitable trade-off if they change the roster to mean that someone can buy that Skaven team or that human team and dive straight in and not be like, well, to be competitive, I need to buy another one?
So this asks a slightly different question now, then, doesn't it? So we're moving slightly away from the medium spiciness hot take here from Luke. My answer would be I prefer as they are at the moment. Yeah, I'd love GW to update the sprue and update it so you could get a complete roster in the box. Is that realistically going to happen? No, of course not. But let's go back to Luke's. But in terms of what Luke said, additional rules for newer teams, especially for the newer teams. Yeah, I think they've been really, really good, very clever. I know people will argue about choice. Should they have tackle? Should they not have tackle? But I think they're really, really clever in terms of how they are still supporting the law. And if anything, they're adding a bit more flavour to it. I'm a big fan, actually, at the moment.
And what do you think about, say, like Norse, where the drunkard is like a debuff skill, but they get the block across the board?
They got block. Block, and that's your decision as a coach. That's your trade-off. So first of all, it fits in with the whole the law about Norse in terms of they are fighty warriors, hard to knock down, but they can't exactly run in a straight line very far, very quick. And that's the drunkard thing coming in. And then they've got thick skulls. So if you do knock them down, they can. And that is the nice thing. So that is giving you a slightly different take on it as a coach. Do you want that slightly more bashy agile? Or do you want a complete bash, or do you want a complete agile? So I like it because it gives you much more flavor and many more opportunities as a coach and as a Blood Bowl, player.
Luke, if you're looking at your next team, are you more likely to get one of these teams with one of these kind of more unique traits to them? Or like, does it change is it actively changing your kind of thoughts as to what team you want to play next if they've got something more interesting like one of these? Like, does that lean you closer towards those
A
teams?
little. So I think it also depends on league versus tournament as well, where I think in a league it's probably more fun because it feels, as Scott said, like more thematic, having these kind of weird skills which define, or like based in lore, but then also define how the team plays. But in tournaments, I think I would be leaning probably more towards standard teams now, because I've tried a few. Like I tried ogres, I tried Nurgle, which are not high performing things in tournaments, and I felt the difference quite a lot. I think in the teams like Amazons, where you've got dodge across the board, and it's just another thing they get better, which again maybe is a tiering thing rather than necessarily individual teams. But I think, yeah, I think I also do like the idea of the negative, or a negative, giving you some benefits, or compensating for benefits. I think that's quite a fun way of designing teams. Like vampires and bloodlust, and the having to offset that. And we were talking earlier about how kind of before the podcast about thralls being targets on vampire teams, and it changes how you play against them because of the rule.
Yeah. Just to throw it back, guys, as a general one, so you've mentioned tournaments there, Luke, and we talk about the meta. And if you look about the meta, of course, people have said, things like Dark Elves and Wood Elves are currently flavor. Necro is everybody's flavor for tournaments, of course. But we've all seen different things change. You see Snotlings go depending on, and again, a lot of that will depend on the individual rule set of the individual tournament. Here's my pushback as a question. Whether you're talking, and let's talk about Blood Bowl here as tabletop and Blood Bowl 3. Because recently they had the World Championships in Blood Bowl 3, and the gentleman, I'm going to forget his name, the Russian gentleman, from, he was playing, and he actually won it, and he beat a lot of the Necro and Wood Elf teams, particularly in the knockout stages, and he was playing Imperial Nobility. And if you asked anyone for a tournament, you want to take Necro or Imperial Nobility, you know what they're going to say. It'll say, I'll take, I might take the Ghoul build, or I might take the Wolf build. But no, he won the actual World Championship of Blood Bowl 3 on, as Imperial Nobility. So does that mean it's about the coach and the skill set of the coach and how they play that team, or versus the team?
I mean, it's always going to be a bit about the coach, isn't it? Because people are going to be suited. People are going to be suited to teams other than that. Like I am absolutely suited to an Edge game. Like Lizardmen are the least Edge team that I'm probably going to be successful with, because, and I don't know, because you can do some Edge nonsense with them. Like it's absolutely how I'm suited to. I would counter that. I think Imperial Nobility, with a coach that knows them well and with a tier 2 tournament skill set, based on the skills that they already come with, could be insane. Because fend on all those linemen, I think, is underrated. The other skills, the wrestle, the stand firm that you get on the other skills, the block and catch you get, I think with some then additional tournament buffs, I think that could become incredibly competitive if you're used to them, and possibly a better choice than humans if you want that kind of style. But yeah, I think the coach. Yeah, I think it's coaches and styles is as important, because I can't imagine taking dwarfs to anything, because I would get so frustrated with how slow they are, regardless of the skills they come with. I think I would be rubbish, and I just wouldn't try.
But a good second hot take.
Very good second
medium.
hot take.
Okay.
I'm cracking open
Do
a
you want-
second cider ready for this super spicy one that we've got incoming. So just going to crack that open.
Okay, prepare yourselves.
Okay, come on, Luke.
Which
is
Other
leads
drinks
on
are
quite nicely
available
from
at
that
hand.
other-
what is the spiciest of spicy number 3?
Tier 1 teams
Come on,
are for
Luke.
cowards.
Hang on, whoa. Hang on. Tier 1 teams are.
For cowards.
He's really not going to make himself
Oh.
popular, is he?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
you've
maybe
changed
a little
since you've-
dot unless it tournament.
Since you've gone underworld, since you've gone Chaos Chosen and Chaos Renegades and Nurgle, you've changed, Luke. You've changed. You've got your 70% record now. You're a changed man. Yeah. God.
Right. Come on. Justify yourself then, sir.
Justify
to the
it.
lizard man and wood elf coach in the room.
Yeah. I think maybe it's a little tongue in cheek, but I think so, because I've been playing a bit of Blood Bowl 3 as well, and just because I hadn't played really tier 1 teams until trying them out on Blood Bowl 3, and the difference your starting roster has versus, and maybe this is 1,000 or mil teams that make it feel this way, but having that universal block, having that universal dodge, or whatever it is, or the mixture of the two, it feels like it kind of removes a bit of the kind of chaos and fun from Blood Bowl. And so maybe it's a tiering of skills that needs to be considered. But then also they do remove the kind of variance, I suppose, which means that under the right coach you can have, because if you played a mirror match of tier 1 teams, say 2 lizardmen teams, you would hope that the skill of the player would force the win, rather than just your team is starting off better than the other person's. And I think, I don't really mean any of this that seriously, but it's quite a fun idea to think, like, if you were to force everyone in a tournament, no tier 1 is banned, I think the roster variance you would get from tier 2 below would be really interesting. And obviously there'd be standouts where, as you mentioned, like Necromantic Horror, arguably could be in tier 1. And again, tournaments vary their tiers, but it's kind of, I don't know, quite a fun thing to think about.
So friend of the podcast, former person on the podcast, Mr. David Drysdale, takes part in a league every now and again where you can only enter tier 2 and below teams. So you cannot enter a tier 1 team into this. And when he first entered this, one thing that he noticed is a lot of Necromantic Horror, who we both agree is probably lucky to be in tier 2, and arguably should be a tier 1 team. Oh man, Scott, you've only ever played tier 1.
No, I played tier 2 in friendlies. Played some vampires.
Oh yes, true.
I think here though, I think we've got to look and discuss on what sort of Luke was alluding to there. So first of all, the tier 1 teams are for cowards. So I think that's wonderfully spicy and completely wrong. So that's your first thing. Second thing you mentioned there, let's just before we cut him off. It's just wrong in every level, Luke. So let's agree you're wrong and let's move on, and then we're fine. I think where you touched upon their universal rules versus tier 1. If we go through the tier 1 list, yeah, this is the tier 1 list today. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if I can count, 7, 8, 9, 10. You've got 11 teams tier 1. Yeah, so that's a third. So just over a third, because it's 29 teams at the moment. So Amazon, okay, they have dodge. Yeah, so they've got dodge across the team. That's fine. Chaos Dwarfs, they don't have a universal skill across all of them. Yes, they've got Iron Hard skin on all of their dwarfs. Yes, they've got 9, but they're sort of the characteristics on the bull centaurs. And then they've got hobgoblins are just there, cannon fodder. Dark Elves. Dark Elves, you're not, well, then, okay, you got block on your blitzers. So you can have 4 block pieces. And that's it. And your witch elves, I suppose, as well. But, you haven't got dodge in terms of any of them. You've got the dwarves. Okay, you've got tackle and block. High elves, we don't know at the moment if they stick in there as high elves because they're not uniform. Lizard men haven't got uniformity, Chris, have they? Unless you're Chris Coe. Norse, okay, they've got block. Shambling, no. Skaven, no. It's not as if they've all got dodge. Okay, the gutter runners do, but again, you're going to get 2 in the box. Underworld denizens are a complete mishmash. And then wood elves. And wood elves, when you start, the only inbuilt skills you've got is are the war dancers, the tree, catcher, and the thrower. Thrower's only got pass. Catcher's only got catch and dodge. And then obviously everybody hates the war dancers and loves to kill them. So universal rules are there for certain ones, such as Amazon and Norse as the classic yin-yang block dodge. So should they need to be slightly tiered back? Possibly. Should they need to do that? Should they be tiered back and eased back so not all of them have block and all of them have dodge? Because there is a very real risk there. We get into a power creep. And then where do you stop it? So therefore, should you give all of Imperial Nobility, as we've mentioned, Fend? Should you give all of Black Orc, +1 Mighty Blow? Should you give all Elven Union, pass or catch? I don't know. So without wanting to go down that rule, because what that does, it takes away a lot of the flexibility and the paths you can develop your team as a coach. I'm not sold, League. It is a spicy argument. It's a very entertaining conversation starter. No, and you can't take it back now. So, with all due respect, you need a T-shirt on this. Deepness, we love it. Go, and then I'll let Chris have a go before he.
Yeah, and so maybe building on your point, maybe it is the kind of the number of skills that remove variance on these teams. Because even if you start with a blitzer with block, that turns your can't do the maths in my head, but rolling a double both down or double skulls, it changes it, I think, to a 1 in 9 with if you've got block. And so that means that when you throw that block with your blitzer against someone who is just a regular lineman that doesn't start with those skills, you're, I guess, removing that variance. And so I think it's I think it would be quite fun to try a tier 2 league and see how different results might be and whether the variance factor that you kind of mitigate slightly with these tier 1 teams, which are more rounded, I suppose, maybe not uniform, maybe that was the wrong word to use. Because I think that's what the tier 1 teams do have, is that every piece has a key part to play and it does it well. But in some of the tier 2 teams, it varies more, I think.
So when you say like about the variance and stuff within the team, just help me a second. What do you mean that most of these teams get played in the same style and there's less?
No, I think I mean more like in what you roll. So, because I guess by variance I mean like if you're rolling a dice and you can I guess maybe variance isn't the right term, but that's what I'm going to stick with, is if you can narrow that variance, like, by adding dodge, meaning that your stumbles don't knock a player down, that reduces your kind of variance, I guess, in
So you're talking about probability management here, then, aren't we?
kind of, yeah. And it's like, I guess you, and obviously that's the whole point of Bloodbowl, is that it's all about probability management to an extent, where you're trying to do as many things as you can with minimal risk, and then break away on things like that. And it's not also just skills. Having 2+ edge across your whole team is pretty pretty strong, in where you need to roll a 1 in 6 to fail, or snake eyes being your only failure state is a pretty strong place to be in, which a lot of the tier 2 teams have less of, and 3 even less. But I think, I don't know, I think they are they're really enjoyable to play against, because I feel like if you play against a tier 1 team, you know what to expect. But against a tier 2 team or tier 3 team, there's more variance, and then therefore perhaps more unpredictable. Yeah, more chances for things to change or play differently. And maybe that's me coming from less experience, in that I'm learning how teams are playing, what to expect. But with tier 1 teams, I kind of know what to expect now already, and they're quite basic, I think.
I really don't
What do
know
you
where
think,
to
Chris?
sit on this one, because I think within some of those tier 1 teams, so season 6 of our league, I was in a group with my lizard men with another lizard man team. He was redrafting, I wasn't. By the time we played our second match against each other, he had a strength heavily skilled up Saurus team full of like block and mighty blow and all of this stuff. I had very few skills on all of my Saurus, but pretty much all of my skinks had sidestep and sure feet and stuff like that. So I had after sort of 4 or 5 games, I had a much more agile team, and he had a much sort of bash heavy team starting from a similar place. So it was quite interesting, because he was playing the bash game that I wouldn't meet. I was playing the edge game that he struggled to contain, but we were starting with the same kind of basic set to go with. Similar with Skaven, how you normally either run a 4 gutter runner, no roger build, or you run a 3 gutter runner roger build. Like, that doesn't sound like there's much difference when you say it out loud, but there is kind of a difference in the way that you kind of play them. I don't know, because I would say that there are some of those tier 2 teams, and there are certain tier 3 builds that you look at, and tier 2, there are some tier 2 builds for those teams where I think you're just as much of a coward for playing that as you are certain tier 1 sort of layouts and tier 1 builds. So I don't know. It's so tricky, because people have told me to play less tier 1, and I refuse.
Let me drag you back a bit there, Chris.
Yeah.
What we've described there basically is the fundamentals of Blood Bowl. It's about risk management. It's about that risk management versus the value you are applying to that level of risk. So, for example, that's why tier 2, tier 3 have more value assigned to them in tournaments, or in those direct competitive where it's a like-for-like product. Yes, we can always come back to the minutiae and the fine detail. Should Elven Union be tier 2? Should they be tier 1? Should Black Orcs be tier 2? Should they be tier 1? Where do you go on this, and at what point do you draw the levels? So you're always going to get that. But in terms of the fundamentals and that risk management and that variance versus the value proposition as well. Yeah, for me, it's always in there. I mean, if you look in terms of that value you mentioned earlier there, in terms of Skaven, a lineman versus a blocker, lineman versus a blitzer. Well, the only difference in this skill, well, there's two things, aren't there? There's one, the blitzers have block and there's armor 9. And that's why you're paying 50k for a lineman versus 90k for a blitzer. And that is your choice as a coach. So if you did want to and you're really insane, you could actually just start with, well, I'm just going to go with 11 linemen. They're all movement 7, so they're not the slowest. Yes, they're strength 3, which is par for course in terms of your blockers. They're edge 3. So as long as you got the re-rolls, edge 3 dodge is an Amazon team. So you can go down that route, and then you've got 500k worth of inducements to start. Hey, that's not a bad idea for season 9, is it? But anyway. I think for tier 1 for cowards, just my last piece, and then I'll get off my soapbox. Tier 1 teams are for cowards. That was the opening statements. I refer that, Your Honor, back to the jury, and I say, no, not guilty at all. Get out my court.
Let me just throw this at you then. Just before we park this, let me throw this at you. Euro Bowl 2024 rule set. Okay, 6 tiers. So I'm going to read them down in tier order. And Luke, I want to tell you at what point you stop being a coward.
Stop being coward.
Yeah. So tier 1, Chaos Dwarfs, Dark Elves, Dwarfs, Lizard Men, Shambling Undead, Underworld Denizens. Tier 2, Amazons, Norse, Orcs, Skaven, Wood Elves. Tier 3, High Elves, Humans, Necromantic Horror, Tomb Kings, Elven Union, Vampires. Are we still cowards?
Probably 3. No, I think 3 is maybe like half of 3. Don't know. And okay, so maybe the counterpoint to appease Scott is tiers 2 and 3 are for the more adventurous players, more tenacious players.
Digging a hole.
Do you see me try and hand off to that out there? Yeah, right. I mean, you were right that was a spicy hot take, and spicy it was. Yep. Thank you very much for all 3 takes that you've brought with us today. Hey, people listening, people out in audio podcast land, what do you think of those takes? Do you find them spicy? Do you think all tier 1 coaches are cowards? What do you think? Hey, Scott, if people want to come tell us what they think, or even tell us a hot take of their own, how do they get in touch?
Hey, Chris, if people do want to get hold of us, if they do want to tell us what they think about that spicy statement from Mr. Luke Baggott of the Fetid Feet, if they want to contact us about anything else Blood Bowl related, whether it's international travel advice from Mr. Tom Hovell, or even international financial advice from and IT advice from Mr. Tom Hovell, they can email us. They can even email us to tell us what is their favorite year and particular reasons why. Was it when Blood Bowl was invented? Who knows? I digress. Anyway, they can email us at newdiceplease, all one word, all lowercase, newdiceplease @email.com. And if that's not enough and they want more Blood Bowl excitement and wonder in their world, Chris, how can they get that fix?
Oh God, I don't normally do this. I just let Tom do the lot. I've got no idea. Hey, if you want to see where else we are, you can go over to YouTube, I think, and find us as Blood Bowl Live on YouTube, where we're streaming all of ADBBL Season 8. You can also see all of our previous streams that we've done from previous seasons, our Monday night roundups, and all of the video versions of this podcast. If you're not watching it there already, you can find the podcast everywhere where you get your podcasts from. Let it be Amazon Music, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you get them from. We're also on Instagram under New Dice Please and under Blood Bowl Live, so you can find us there as well. God, you put me on the spot there. I really panicked, and I had no idea. I just assumed we didn't do anything. Completely panicked. Oh, calm down, Chris. Okay, thank you very much, Scott. Thank you very much, Luke, for joining us this week. Thank you, everybody,
Yeah.
for listening. We have been New Dice Please, and we will see you next time.